the state of our health, something we strive to improve and maintain, but sometimes inadvertently destroy. Universally, it's vitally important. The Germans have a universal word for it. Gesundheit.
Hello and welcome to the program. In this edition, we prove that grey power is alive and well. 95-year-old Ramaswamy Lakshmanan has earned himself a place in the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest medical practitioner on the planet.
Researchers are preparing to implement greater security measures at germ storage facilities around the world in the wake of anthrax attacks. But they warn that a total clampdown would ultimately lead to far fewer medical breakthroughs.
And twin girls from Nepal, once fused at the head, have left Singapore for home after recovering from marathon separation surgery. Jamuna and Ganga will return to Singapore within a year or two so that surgeons can reconstruct their skulls. But our first story today deals with a 5-year, multi-million-dollar court battle. Bar Laboratories has started shipping boxes of fluoxetine, the generic version of the blockbuster antidepressant Prozac, taken by 2 million Americans every day. Bar Labs has 6 months to sell the 20-milligram generic capsules of fluoxetine exclusively, 25 to 40% cheaper than Prozac. The famous green and yellow pill generated $2.6 billion in sales in 2001 for Eli Lilly. Prozac is the biggest selling drug yet to lose its patent protection after an Indiana judge recently ruled in Bar Lab's favor. According to Dr. Stuart Schweitzer, professor of health economics at UCLA, there's little difference between Prozac and the generic copy. A Lilly spokesman said that the drug maker has been planning for years to lose its patent and is not likely to cut the price of Prozac. Lilly will try to make up lost profits with 2 new versions of Prozac set for release, including one that's taken weekly. Lilly plans to appeal the patent dispute to the US Supreme Court, but believe the High Court is unlikely to hear the case. Bar Laboratories, meanwhile, is quickly on its way to becoming the generic giant killers. A patient can spend thousands of dollars a year for the medication Prilosec, also known as Losec, which treats ulcers and acid reflux. But now, millions of patients are getting burned by Prilosec's maker, AstraZeneca. The company has filed lawsuits which delay the patent expiration on their multi-billion-dollar medication. When the patent expires, another company will be able to bring a cheaper, generic version of the drug onto the market. That, advocates say, would save the typical Prilosec user about $500 a year. Competition for patient and insurance company money is growing fierce. When Eli Lilly's patent on Prozac expired, the company lost 80% of its sales in a month to generic versions. Udrix Corporation is first in line to put a generic competitor for Prilosec on the market, and is expected to earn millions in its first 6 months. While Prilosec is expected to be the biggest drug patent expiration in history, more will come. Over the next 5 years, patents on almost $40 billion annual worth of drugs are due to expire. Sore throats account for as many as 10 million doctor's visits each year. According to a new study in the Journal of the American Medical Association, antibiotics, the most popular treatment prescribed for sore throats, is not necessarily the best one. According to the author of the study, Dr. Jeffrey Linder, most sore throats and colds are caused by viral infections which are impervious to antibiotics. Antibiotics are most effective at treating bacterial infections such as strep throat. Linders attributes the overprescription to expediency. Doctors not having enough time to perform bacterial tests or patients expecting a quick fix. Overprescription of antibiotics has allowed a new class of a drug-resistant bacteria to develop, which may be difficult to destroy and could lead to extended illness. Though it's yet to become a widespread health concern, emergency room doctors have already reported seeing an increase in drug-resistant pneumonia. In other drug news, Vioxx, one of the top-selling prescription painkillers, may increase a person's risk of having a heart attack, according to a study published in the latest issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association. The research looked at the rate of cardiovascular incidents such as heart attack, sudden death and stroke in 2 clinical trials and found that among people with rheumatoid arthritis, Vioxx may increase cardiovascular events twofold. Merck & Co., the makers of Vioxx, dispute the analysis. They conducted their own studies of Vioxx among 28,000 patients, in which some were given Vioxx and others were given a sugar pill. The drug, which is advertised as providing 24-hour relief to osteoarthritis sufferers, is widely used internationally and is currently being tested to see if it can prevent Alzheimer's disease in people with dementia. And the drug that's taken the world by storm. Young people everywhere have been swept off their feet by ecstasy. Once considered a harmless drug only taken by teens dancing the night away at raves and nightclubs, researchers now say they're sure ecstasy can cause brain damage and long-term memory loss. According to Dr. Alan Lechner of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, ecstasy use has spread to rural communities throughout the US and is not just a club drug anymore. Stamped with different markings like the yin and yang symbol and the Statue of Liberty, the pills are pouring into the US from Europe. In 2001 alone, United States customs agents seized over 9 million tablets and expect that number to rise sharply by 2002. As nightclubs pump out the music and kids come to dance, authorities around the world hope that ecstasy is just a passing fad, not an epidemic. "91-year-old Ruth has trouble walking, hearing and seeing. But with the help of 81-year-old Stella de Jauregui, the frail senior is able to get around safely. Stella is a volunteer for the Senior Companion Program in San Francisco. And like Stella, Fanny Putman volunteers her time to help others too. She heard about the foster grandparent program from a friend. Senior volunteers are obligated to work 20 hours per week, but they earn a tax-free stipend of $2.50 an hour. Inez, who's housebound, receives visits twice a week from Dorothy. While Dorothy does some practical things for Inez, mostly they provide one another with friendship. For these aging volunteers, work helps keep them feeling young, active and healthy. But when it comes to working well into the twilight years, one old boy takes the cake. He's 95-year-old Ramaswamy Lakshmanan, and his ability to carry on with his medical profession for the last 11 decades has earned him a place in the Guinness Book of World Records. Recognized by the Guinness Society recently, Lakshmanan is the oldest medical practitioner in the world today. Madras Medical College was his alma mater, and since his appointment in 1930 as head of pathology in the government hospital at Vellore, Lakshmanan has never stopped practicing. In many instances, he's even seen 4 or 5 generations of the same families, after delivering many of them to begin with. Dr. Lakshmanan's consultancy fee can at best be described as meagre, 2 cents for an adult patient and just 1 cent for children. He even includes the medicines for free, which he has an assistant dispense for him next door. The aging medic has no kind words for his fellow practitioners who charge exorbitant fees. According to a friend and neighbour, P.K. Ramamurthy, the good doctor can detect ailments just by looking at a patient's face. His methods are simple, but long queues of patients attest to his success. On average, he sees 60 people each day. His simple work practices are in keeping with his simple and very disciplined life. He rises at 5 a.m. each morning, bathes in cold water, and prepares to have a coffee. Then he takes bread and milk and goes to work. Dr. Lakshmanan believes his daily regime is what has kept his body trim and healthy and his mind sharp. The much-loved medicine man plans to keep healing the sick for some years to come, Guinness World Record or not. Your skin sags a little, your memory isn't what it was, and your body seems to have a mind of its own. Are these really the golden years? Absolutely. With a renewed focus on fitness, millions of elderly are determined to fight the effects of aging. They're exercising their bodies and minds by dancing, laughing, taking up new hobbies, and making new memories. Some are still winning contests. At this year's Elderfest in Washington, D.C., more than 1,000 older people turned out for a morale boost and reminders to stay active. Drink lots of water and always celebrate the good old and new days. It just goes to show that it's never too late to be fit and fabulous. And proving that it's never too late to be a beauty queen, 91-year-old Dolores Garces was recently crowned Miss Grandmother in Mexico City. Cheered on by their children and grandchildren, 45 women from all over Mexico competed in the 10th annual Grandmother Beauty Contest. While there was no bathing suit competition, contestants strutted their stuff in glamorous evening gowns and traditional Mexican dresses. Contestants were even quizzed on current events. Pageant organisers have received positive feedback from senior citizens who love the show. In addition to the crown, Garces will receive various beauty products and trips to popular Mexican tourist towns.
In response to the increasing number of anthrax scares in the United States, the Mayo Clinic has released a new rapid response DNA test that can determine if an individual has contracted the anthrax virus in under 30 minutes. Until now, tests have taken several days to identify the presence of anthrax. The test takes about 1 minute to prepare, and the Mayo Clinic claims results are accurate, even if there is a low level of bacteria present. Roche Diagnostics has distributed testing kits to 24 selected laboratories throughout the US at no cost. The test has not yet been approved by the US Food and Drug Administration, and it is not clear when or even if it will be in the near future. Another response to America's anthrax scare is a $25 home test kit. Pure Test claims to detect anthrax spores in the air, water and on surfaces. Some are warning such kits will only heighten already jittery nerves, while others argue they could help reduce unnecessary calls to overloaded police and physicians. Despite alarming scenes like these, the government continues to appeal for calm, but it's a message that's ringing hollow in cyberspace. Internet pharmacies are swamped with Cipro orders, the powerful anthrax antibiotic. Unnecessary use of Cipro can actually cause more harm than good by building up resistant bacteria. But as the threat of anthrax contamination continues, the message to stay calm is increasingly falling on deaf ears. As more people are being treated with the now famous antibiotic, stockpiling and misuse of the drug is becoming a major concern. Capitol Hill staff and US postal workers are already treating Cipro like an old friend during difficult times. The wonder drug kills most bacteria, so the body's immune system can fight toxins released into tissue by the anthrax. But doctors warn this drug must be used very carefully. For instance, if a dose is missed, the anthrax multiplies, but this time with a possible resistance to Cipro. All antibiotics have side effects, but Cipro can be particularly strong and even antacids can make it ineffective. Experts say antibiotic abuse will hurt more people than actual anthrax exposure. The bacteria may develop resistance to Cipro naturally over the course of years, but with widespread abuse it could happen within months. As a result of the recent spate of anthrax attacks in the United States, biologists and other researchers are taking steps to raise security at universities and institutions where hazardous bacteria is stored. They, more than most, would understand the dangers the viruses pose. But at the same time, they believe that a complete clampdown on access to collections of germs would ultimately result in far fewer scientific and medical breakthroughs. Many universities instituted several immediate measures, such as obscuring information on data they possess on dangerous organisms, especially since discovering that the anthrax virus was most likely stolen from a research laboratory or institute. Meanwhile, the United States remains on a heightened state of alert, aware that the nation may be subjected to reprisal attacks following the relentless waves of airstrikes the military has rained down on Afghanistan. So far, at least 15 people have tested positive for anthrax and several have died. Thousands more have been treated preventatively with Cipro in an effort to stem possible development of the disease. The search for better alternatives to Cipro are underway as well, with some researchers claiming they've done away with common side effects such as nausea, diarrhoea and rashes.
Delia Gamboa suffers from postpartum depression, a crippling condition which affects more than 15% of new mothers. Like many women, she initially refused to be treated, concerned that medication could be passed on to her child through breast milk. It was a decision which proved disabling. But now there's hope for many women like Delia, with new research suggesting mothers can safely take psychiatric medication. Dr. Vivian Burt, director for the Women's Life Center at UCLA, assessed more than 95 studies spanning 5 decades and believes the findings are conclusive. Healthy babies won't suffer adversely to medication via breast milk. In the majority of cases, the benefits of taking antidepressants greatly outweigh the risks. Delia Gamboa is proof of this, now finally able to enjoy a healthy, happy relationship with her 2 sons. Pacifiers have been used by mothers to calm fussy babies for almost 3,000 years. But mums and doctors have become concerned that pacifier use may result in premature weaning of breastfeeding infants. A new study published in the latest issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association shows that babies are no more likely to stop breastfeeding within the first 3 months of life, whether the mother uses a pacifier or not. The problem unfolds when an infant cries and mothers think they don't have enough milk, so they use a pacifier to soothe their crying infant. Instead, doctors suggest breastfeeding more often to increase the milk supply. The study recommends several alternatives to using pacifiers, including carrying and rocking. Whenever mothers meet, there's always one hot topic of conversation: how their newborns and toddlers are sleeping. Joe and 10-week-old Will and Shana and 11-month-old Perry have an expert listener in Dr. Harriet Hiscock, a paediatrician at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, Australia. Dr. Hiscock has surveyed 740 new mothers who've had problems with their child's sleep. She advised them when to calm their fussy babies and when to let them cry, which not only ensured better sleep, but helped the mums ward off postnatal depression. The controlled crying approach thus improves the well-being of both child and mother. Sally Bernard takes a break from her hectic schedule to visit with her 13-year-old son Bill. He was diagnosed with autism at age 4, but she says he showed symptoms almost 2 years earlier. Just down the hall at a Cambridge, Massachusetts hotel conference room, Sally takes part in the first public hearing on the risks of mercury used as preservatives in several childhood vaccines. Hundreds of medical experts also attend the gathering before the US Institute of Medicine, including Dr. Jeff Bradstreet, who's studying the mercury levels in about 200 autistic children. He believes they had many times more mercury as other healthy infants and suspects that mercury may cause autism. Studies have shown at just 3 months, some infants receive more than 100 times the EPA safe limit for mercury. But whether these exposures cause developmental disorders warrants more research. The FDA says older vaccines still contain thimerosal, a preservative containing mercury. But all childhood vaccines are now available without this preservative. And so we come to Ganga and Jamuna Shrestha. They were discharged from Singapore General Hospital recently and were able to go home with their parents to Nepal. The now separated Siamese twins will live in the Nepalese capital, Kathmandu, with their family and will be supported by a team of medical experts from Kathmandu Hospital. The surgeon who conducted the 100-hour operation to separate the twins told a news conference that the girls were ready to go home to rest, grow and develop. Professor Ho Yun explained that the 18-month-old girls had already been through quite an ordeal, such as major operations every other day for about 3 to 4 months. Naturally, their parents, Father Bushra and Mother Sandhya, were delighted to be going home with the whole family, but they'll return to Singapore next year for skull reconstruction surgery. The babies, who were kept on ventilators in a drug-induced sleep for days after the surgery, have not suffered any major strokes, brain swelling or brain infections. Doctors said Jamuna, the stronger of the two, now tries to roll over and is learning to sit. Though slightly heavier at 8.2 kilograms, Ganga has yet to catch up with her sister's development. The costly operation, which utilised 3D computer imaging of the girls' skulls, was paid for by a pool of public donations that poured in to cover all costs, while doctors offered their services for free.